Florence Scovel Shinn uncovered a single word, a word possessing the power to unravel any seemingly insurmountable challenge. And here's the astounding part. This word isn't what you might think. In 1927, a distraught woman sought Florence's help. She faced a situation deemed hopeless by doctors, lawyers, and financial advisors. Her 15-year-old son had vanished without a trace 3 months prior. The police had given up. Private investigators found nothing. Florence applied a specific technique involving just one word. 48 hours later, the son called home, safe and sound. What happened in that time frame defies all logical explanation. But before revealing this powerful word, you need to understand why most attempts to solve impossible situations fail miserably. The problem isn't the situation itself. The problem lies in how our conscious mind interprets what's possible and what's impossible. Florence discovered that when we label a situation as impossible, we create a mental block, preventing solutions from emerging. It's like closing all the doors and windows, then complaining that no light enters the house. The conscious mind operates with linear logic. It analyzes available facts and concludes what can or cannot happen. But Florence knew that higher intelligences operate beyond linear logic. These intelligences have access to possibilities, connections, and resources the conscious mind would never consider. They can orchestrate miraculous coincidences, resolving situations in hours or days. The word Florence discovered acts as a key, unlocking the door between the limited conscious mind and these boundless higher intelligences. That word is, I permit. But simply speaking the word doesn't create the miracle. It's the specific way Florence taught to use it that activates its transformative power. When you say, I permit, you're doing 3 simultaneous things that transform impossible situations. First, you stop resisting. Mental resistance keeps problems locked in place. It's like trying to open a door by pushing in the wrong direction. When you permit, you cease fighting the situation and open space for solutions to flow. Second, you invite higher intelligences to act. The universe never interferes with your free will. But when you consciously permit, you're giving permission for greater forces to organize reality in ways you couldn't plan. Third, you align your energy with unlimited possibilities instead of perceived limitations. Energy follows focus. When you focus on the impossible, you fuel impossibility. When you permit, you focus on openness and potential. Let me share a specific case that proved to Florence the power of this word. The woman who sought Florence in 1927 was named Margaret. Her son Thomas had gone out to meet friends one Saturday afternoon and never returned. He took no clothes, money, or documents. He simply disappeared. Margaret had tried everything. She hired detectives, offered rewards, contacted hospitals in 3 different states. She prayed desperately every night, but her prayers seemed unanswered. Florence immediately saw the problem. Margaret was praying from desperation, not trust. She was trying to force a solution through intense worry, which is the exact opposite of what works. Florence taught Margaret to apply the word, I permit, in a specific way. It wasn't just saying the word, but entering the emotional state of genuine permission. The process had 4 steps. First step, Margaret needed to completely stop trying to solve the situation through mental effort. This included stopping imagining negative scenarios, stopping planning next steps, stopping analyzing what might have happened, Second step, Margaret learned to say, "I permit divine intelligence to resolve this situation perfectly and harmoniously for the highest good of all involved." Third step, after speaking these words, Margaret needed to genuinely feel she had surrendered the problem to higher forces, like handing a letter at the post office. You trust it will be delivered and move on with your life. Fourth step, Margaret should thank in advance for the solution, as if it had already happened. The first attempts were difficult. Margaret was so used to worrying that she felt guilty for not doing something. Florence explained that genuine permission isn't passivity. It's the most powerful action there is. On the second night applying the technique, something shifted. Margaret felt an inexplicable peace. It wasn't denial or resignation. It was a deep sense that everything was being taken care of by a higher intelligence. On the third day, Margaret received an unexpected phone call. It was from a woman who had found a confused young man in a town 200 miles away. The young man had only said one name, Margaret. It was Thomas. He was physically well, but couldn't explain where he'd been or how he got to that town. He said he only remembered a gentle voice guiding him to a safe place where he should wait until he was found. Florence documented hundreds of similar cases throughout her career. The word, "I permit," consistently worked in situations that seemed impossible to resolve. But Florence discovered that there are specific ways to enhance the power of this word. The first is timing. Like all her techniques, "I permit" works best when applied during what she called the golden moment. That time of day when you feel naturally more connected and optimistic. The second is mindful repetition. It's not about mechanically repeating the word, but returning to the state of permission whenever the conscious mind tries to regain control through worry. The third is specific intention with an open outcome. You can be specific about the desired result, but must remain completely open about how that result will manifest. For example, Margaret was specific. She wanted her son back, safe and sound. But she didn't try to control how this would happen. If she had insisted that he should be found by the police, or that he should appear at the front door, she might have interfered with the process. Florence observed that impossible situations usually resolve through paths the conscious mind would never consider. That's why it's crucial to permit instead of direct. Let me share another case that demonstrates how the word, "I permit," can solve seemingly impossible financial situations. In 1930, a man named Charles approached Florence Scovel in desperation. He owed a huge sum to the bank and had only 48 hours to pay, or he'd lose his home and business. There were no obvious sources of money. Charles had tried every logical avenue: loans from friends, emergency sales, even negotiating with the bank. Nothing worked. The situation seemed genuinely impossible. Florence introduced him to the technique of permission. Charles initially resisted. He believed he should be doing something active to solve the problem. Florence explained that sometimes the most effective action is to stop compulsive action and allow unexpected solutions to emerge. Charles learned to say, "I allow perfect abundance to flow into this situation now, harmoniously and beneficially for all." He practiced this during his peak state, early mornings before sunrise. During these moments, Charles felt a natural connection to limitless possibilities. On the second morning of practicing permission, Charles received an unexpected phone call. It was from a former client who had moved to another state 5 years prior. The man said he'd dreamed of Charles and felt an inexplicable urge to call. During their conversation, the client mentioned he was looking for someone for a specific project that would pay exactly what Charles needed. But there was an impossible detail. The project needed to be completed in 24 hours. Any rational person would say it was impossible. But Charles, still in the state of permission, felt he should accept. He worked 18 hours straight and completed the project perfectly. The payment arrived 2 hours before the bank deadline. The client later confessed to Charles that he had never hired someone from another state for an emergency project. He couldn't explain why he'd called Charles specifically at that moment. Florence Scovel called these events organized impossibilities. Situations where seemingly unconnected elements align perfectly to create solutions that defy normal probabilities. The word allow doesn't create these alignments. It removes the mental blocks that prevent you from recognizing and following them when they appear. Florence Scovel discovered that there are specific signs indicating when permission is working effectively. The first sign is a sudden shift in your emotional relationship with the problem. Instead of constant anxiety, you feel an unusual calm. It's not resignation, but inexplicable trust. The second sign is that synchronicities begin to appear. Casual conversations mention elements related to your situation. You meet people unexpectedly. Relevant information arrives through unlikely sources. The third sign is a feeling that you're being guided. Impulses to call certain people, go to specific places, or take specific actions that don't make logical sense, but that you feel you must follow. The fourth sign is the most powerful. You stop obsessively worrying about the problem. Not because you've given up, but because you know on a deep level that you're being taken care of. When these four signs appear, Florence Scovel taught that the solution is already in motion in the physical world. It's just a matter of time until it manifests visibly. But Florence Scovel also warned about obstacles that can interfere with the process of permission. The first is impatience. When you genuinely allow, you don't constantly check if it's working. Impatience is a subtle way of resuming mental control. The second obstacle is telling negative people. Not everyone understands or supports spiritual approaches to solving practical problems. When you share with skeptical people, you can absorb doubts that interfere with your confidence. The third obstacle is trying to apply permission while continuing to try to solve the problem through other methods simultaneously. It's like trying to drive a car with one foot on the brake and the other on the accelerator. Florence Scovel recommended choosing. Either you completely trust the process of permission, or you use conventional approaches. Mixing the two approaches dilutes the effectiveness of both. The fourth obstacle is giving up too soon. Some situations resolve in hours, others take weeks. Time doesn't indicate failure of the method, but rather the complexity of the reorganization that needs to happen behind the scenes. Florence Scovel always emphasized that truly impossible situations do not exist. There are only situations for which we cannot imagine solutions with our limited conscious mind. When you genuinely allow, you're acknowledging that higher intelligences have access to possibilities, resources, and connections infinitely greater than any human planning. Margaret, the woman whose son disappeared, never fully explained what happened, but she consistently applied permission with other difficult situations for the rest of her life, and always found unexpected solutions. Charles, the man with financial problems, transformed his approach to business. Instead of trying to control every outcome through sheer effort, he learned to combine intelligent action with genuine permission. His business prospered in ways he had never imagined. Florence Scovel observed that people who mastered the art of permission developed a specific quality. They became natural problem solvers, not because they were more intelligent or talented, but because they knew how to access higher intelligences when situations seemed impossible. The word allow is not magic in the sense of breaking natural laws. It's magic in the sense of aligning you with aspects of reality that operate beyond common perception. When you genuinely allow, you're not being passive. You're activating a higher form of action that works through synchronicities, intuitions, and unexpected opportunities. Florence Scovel always said that life is not a problem to be solved through constant struggle. It's a mystery to be lived through conscious participation with higher intelligences. The word allow is the key that unlocks the door between struggle and conscious participation, between desperate attempts and elegant solutions, between apparent impossibility and limitless possibilities. If you have a situation in your life that seems impossible to solve, perhaps it's time to stop trying to solve it and start allowing. The solution may be closer than you think, just waiting for your permission to manifest. Florence Scovel left this powerful legacy. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to plan every step. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You just need to allow higher powers to work through you. And when you truly allow, you discover that seemingly insurmountable challenges were merely disguised invitations to experience everyday miracles, orchestrated by an intelligence infinitely wiser than any human worry. The word is available. The technique has been tested. The results have been documented. Only one question remains. Are you willing to allow? But let me be more specific about how to apply this technique in practice. Because knowing the word isn't enough. You need to master the art of genuinely allowing. Florence Scovel developed a specific protocol she used with all her clients. This protocol transforms the simple word, I allow, into a powerful tool for transforming reality. The protocol has 7 steps, and each one is crucial for success. Step 1. Clear identification of the seemingly insurmountable challenge. Florence discovered that many people have difficulty allowing because they haven't clearly defined what they want to resolve. You can't vaguely allow. You must be specific about the desired outcome, but flexible about the method. Margaret wanted her son back, safe and sound. Charles needed a specific amount of money by a specific deadline. Clarity about the desired outcome is fundamental to activating the allowing process. Step 2. Honest acknowledgement of the apparent impossibility. This isn't negativity or giving up. It's honesty. Florence taught that you must acknowledge that, by normal and logical means, the situation really does seem impossible to solve. This acknowledgement is important because it stops you from pretending you're in control when you're not. It's the first step in making room for higher solutions. Step 3. Release of control through surrender. Before allowing, you must consciously surrender the situation to higher intelligence. Florence used specific words. I surrender this situation to the infinite wisdom that governs the universe. Surrender isn't giving up. It's acknowledging that there is an intelligence superior to your conscious mind, and that this intelligence has access to possibilities you can't even imagine. Step 4. Application of the word I allow with emotional conviction. This is where most people fail. They say the word, but they don't feel genuine permission. Florence taught that you must feel internally, that you are opening all doors to unexpected solutions. The complete phrase Florence recommended was, I allow the perfect solution to manifest now in a harmonious and beneficial way for everyone involved. Step 5. Cultivating expectation without anxiety. After allowing, you should maintain a positive expectation that something good will happen, but without anxiety about when or how. It's like planting a seed. You expect it to grow, but you don't keep digging it up to check. Step 6. Recognizing and following intuitive guidance. After applying allowance, you should be attentive to impulses, ideas, or opportunities that seem to arise out of nowhere. These are frequently guidance from the unfolding solution process. Margaret had the impulse to leave information about Thomas with a specific organization she'd never considered before. It was through that organization that he was found. Charles felt an inexplicable urge to answer a phone call he would normally ignore. It was the client who offered the life-saving project. Step 7. Maintaining faith until manifestation. The final step is maintaining confidence in the process, even when nothing seems to be happening externally. Florence always said that the time between allowing and manifesting is when the universe is rearranging people, events, and circumstances to create the solution. Florence Shinn tested this 7-step protocol with hundreds of cases over decades. The results were consistent when people followed all the steps correctly. But Florence also documented the most common errors that prevented the technique from working. Error 1. Allowing with the mouth but controlling with the mind. Many people say, "I allow," but continue obsessively planning how to solve the problem. This cancels the effect of allowance. Error 2. Impatience disguised as faith. Some people apply the technique but constantly check if it's working. This impatience is a subtle form of lack of trust that interferes with the process. Error 3. Allowing only solutions that make logical sense. If you only allow solutions that your mind can imagine, you're limiting the process. The best solutions often come from completely unexpected directions. Error 4. Giving up when partial solutions appear. Sometimes the universe solves a situation in stages. If you give up at the first stage because it's not the complete solution, you may interrupt a larger process underway. Florence observed that allowance works best when you are genuinely willing to accept any beneficial solution, even if it's different from what you initially imagined. Let me share a third case that illustrates how allowance can resolve seemingly impossible situations related to health. In 1933, a woman named Dorothy sought out Florence Shinn with a devastating medical diagnosis. Doctors had found a tumor they considered inoperable due to its location. They estimated she had at most 6 months to live. Dorothy had consulted several specialists. They all came to the same conclusion. Medically, the situation was impossible to resolve. Florence Shinn applied the complete allowance protocol with Dorothy, but adapted for health situations. Dorothy learned to say, "I allow perfect healing to manifest in my body now, in a way that serves the highest good of all involved." But Florence added specific elements for health cases. Dorothy should visualize her body being healed not only physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. Complete healing, according to Florence, always involves all aspects of being. Dorothy applied the allowance for 3 weeks. Initially, nothing changed in the medical exams. But Dorothy began to feel an inexplicable peace and a confidence that everything was being taken care of. In the 4th week, Dorothy received an unexpected call from a doctor friend who had specialized in an experimental technique in another country. He was returning to the United States and offered to examine Dorothy at no cost. This doctor discovered that the initial diagnosis was incorrect. What the other doctors had identified as an inoperable tumor was actually a rare but treatable condition he had studied extensively. Dorothy was completely cured in 6 months using the correct treatment. But the most interesting part? The specialist confessed he'd never spontaneously offered free consultations before. He said he felt an inexplicable urge, an urgent push to contact Dorothy, specifically. Florence documented that permission often works by correcting incorrect diagnoses or connecting people to the right solutions, solutions that already existed but were simply out of their normal reach. This technique doesn't contradict appropriate medical treatment. It works alongside medicine, often guiding people to the right professionals at the right time. Florence noted that people applying permission to health issues frequently discovered their physical problems were linked to unresolved emotional or spiritual issues. Complete healing involved all these aspects. Dorothy, for example, discovered during her healing process that she harbored emotional patterns of guilt and resentment. These were significantly contributing to her physical condition. Permission not only connected her with the right doctor, but also with the necessary inner healing. Florence developed specific variations of permission for different types of seemingly insurmountable challenges. For financial problems, I permit perfect abundance to flow into this situation harmoniously and sustainably. For relationships, I permit true love to manifest in a way that serves the growth of everyone involved. For professional matters, I permit the perfect opportunity to reveal itself in a way that utilizes my talents for the greater good. For family issues, I permit harmony and understanding to establish themselves beneficially for the entire family. For legal matters, I permit true justice to prevail in a way that serves the best interests of all involved. Each variation maintains the same essential elements: genuine permission, openness to unexpected solutions, and the intention that the outcome serves the greater good. Florence always emphasized this last point. Permission works best when you're genuinely willing to accept solutions that benefit everyone involved, not just yourself. This doesn't mean sacrificing your own interests. It means recognizing that truly harmonious solutions generally benefit everyone, even if it doesn't initially seem possible. Margaret wanted her son back, but her permission included Thomas's well-being. The solution that emerged not only brought Thomas home, but placed him in a situation where he was safe and cared for during his period of confusion. Charles needed money to save his business, but his permission included the solution being beneficial to everyone. The project that appeared not only solved his financial problems, but also provided exactly the service the client desperately needed. Dorothy wanted to be healed, but her permission included serving the highest good. The solution not only cured her physical condition, but connected her with emotional and spiritual insights that transformed her entire approach to life. Florence observed that when you genuinely include the well-being of others in your permission, the universe has much more space to create elegant and lasting solutions. The word permit is powerful because it acknowledges a fundamental truth. You're not alone in the universe trying to solve everything through individual effort. You're part of a larger intelligence, constantly orchestrating synchronicities and possibilities for the benefit of all. When you permit, you're aligning your individual will with this universal intelligence. And when these two forces work together, situations that seemed impossible to resolve transform into opportunities to witness miracles orchestrated with mathematical precision. Florence always said that life doesn't have to be a constant struggle against impossibilities. It can be an elegant dance with limitless possibilities, where your only responsibility is to allow the music to flow through you. The word permit is the first step in that dance. The rest is simply following the rhythm of an intelligence infinitely wiser and more loving than any human worry could ever imagine. And perhaps that's Florence Scovel Shinn's greatest discovery. We are not victims of insurmountable circumstances. We are conscious participants in an infinitely creative universe, where the only true impossibility is limiting our potential to only what our conscious mind can imagine. Permission opens the door to everything beyond human imagination. And on the other side of that door, seemingly impossible situations wait to transform into living testaments to the universe's creative generosity.